So this is a video from the OECD, and it tells us all it's time to rethink about plastic. As we can all see, it dominates all of our lives. It's everywhere you go. It's in the supermarkets, food packaging, toys for your kids, toys for your dog, building materials, even clothes we're wearing. So it's gone from 2 million tons to 400,000 tons. So it's quite an amount. And as we see, it gets everywhere, but it ends up mainly in landfill or at the bottom of the ocean or around various wildlife's necks and animals getting strangled by it. We've got to ask ourselves, why is so little of this recycled? Why is so little recycled here in England in particular? Well, it's because it's expensive, obviously, and it's hard to do, but it's not impossible. So how do we make the trade-off? What do we do? What do we have to do? Only 15% of plastics are currently recyclable, which is quite an amazingly low figure. But they are being used to design new things. And as I talked about pollution in the ocean, you can see, you don't have to go very far out in an ocean or a lake to discover some plastic, which is there forever. So it's a pretty serious situation, as you can see. And I am glad that we have some people here from the Waste Partnership. Gents, do you want to introduce yourselves first, and then I can run your slideshow for you, and then people can ask their questions. I'm keen to get to the questions, but maybe you should introduce yourselves, say what's happening, and I will click into your slideshow for you.
Thanks, Barry. Hi, I'm Mickey Green, so I'm Managing Director at the Somerset Waste Partnership. So we're the partnership of Mendip, the other district councils, and the county council, which deals with all the household recycling, so your collections at the kerbside and the recycling centres across Somerset.
Hello there, and I'm Mark Ford. I'm the Head of Comms and Engagement at the partnership. Joined in around February, so still learning, but yeah, an interesting time to join.
Good. And as you will all know, I'm your district councillor from Mendip District Council, and recycling, rubbish collection is one of the services that Mendip provides to your home. You get a green bin. I call it a green bin. It's not a green bin, it's brown in colour. It's for your garden waste. You get various types of bin for what I call your domestic waste, or what I think we're going to end up calling your legacy non-recyclable waste. And then you have various containers for bits and pieces that you can recycle, which is changing. So I'm going to put up the slideshow and I'll hand over to you. I'm going to mute myself now. Bear a moment, one moment. There we go, I hope.
Thanks, Barry. So if you flick on to the next one, I'll just set a bit of a scene before talking about the change that's coming up, which is obviously the main focus for today. I'll try and link it back to the points kind of picked up in the video as well, if I can. So a bit of context, we do recycling for around the 260,000 homes in Somerset, most of Somerset schools, and that means we do over 20 million collections a year. So what we're really proud of is that 90% of the recycling we collect from you stays in the UK, and about half, just over half normally, and all the food and all the garden waste all stays in Somerset. I think that's the first point. The reason we can keep so much of it in the UK is because of that curbside sort, the effort you all put into separating your recyclables. And that effectively means we're not collecting the kind of mixed up, mushed up stuff, which is often the stuff that you can see in the horrible pictures, that there was some of in that film Barry showed. So we're really committed to keeping as much as we can in the UK. I'm hoping that percentage is going to go up with the changes we made. But as that video rightly pointed out, actually just dealing with our waste at the end of it is never going to get us out of where we are environmentally. It's about the production, it's about consumption. So we focus a lot as well on the fact that around a tonne of waste is generated per household. So our recycling rate is pretty good in Somerset, so something we can be proud of, but which we can improve on significantly at 53%. So that puts us in about the kind of top 20% nationally. where we're in the top 10 and 7th best in the country is for carbon saving. And again, that's that product of the fact our recycling stays in the UK, we collect it separately so we can recycle it in the best way possible. So turning glass bottles back into glass bottles, that kind of closed loop recycling that's the best for carbon saving. A key driver for what we're changing is really that bottom right figure. Actually, when you look at Somerset, when we look in bins on average, just over half of what's in people's bins could be recycled at the moment. So we know there's much more by working together we can do. So if you flick on, Barry. So Recycle More is what we call the new service coming up. So it's expanding what you can recycle every week, and it's about protecting the environment and saving taxpayers' money. So I'll talk through what we're adding in each week, but the headline, the big thing, is the plastic pots, tubs and trays. We've been taking them at the recycling centres for a while, and I think every month since we introduced it, it's gone up and up and up, just showing that demand is there, that awareness of the importance of separating your waste and recycling has grown. With all the extra recycling we'll be doing, the frequency of your bin collection will move from every 2 weeks to every 3 weeks. So we think that will take our recycling rate up to 60%. It'll reduce rubbish by 15%. It will save around £2 million a year, which will get invested back into other services at Mendip and elsewhere. But really, it's that environmental driver that's behind what we're doing. So if you move on and talk a bit more about the materials we're adding in. So plastic pots, tubs and trays. So that's things from yogurt pots, the meat trays that meat often comes in from supermarkets, punnets that your strawberries might come in from a supermarket, as well as non-food items. So it's important to remember it can be, those pots, tubs and trays don't have to just be your food things. We'll also be starting to recycle food and drink cartons. So they're your Tetra Paks. Things like that, so you might get milk or juice in them. And we'll also be taking small batteries and small electrical items. So again, we're not going to pick up loads of them in terms of tons compared to, say, the tons of food waste, cardboard and glass. But what they are is, if they go in the wrong place, and often with what we're doing is about getting the waste to the right place so we can do the right thing to it, it's important we capture them. So you'll have seen the emphasis, or started to see the emphasis if you've already had your Somerset, and you'll also be getting something through your door in the next few days, emphasising the bright blue bag. So that's because with all that extra weekly recycling, you need somewhere to put it. So you'll have a hard-wearing, weighted, reusable, with a flap over the top that fastens down, and that's basically where all your plastics and metal will go. So the plastic bottles that you can already recycle and their lids, so that'll be new. The pots, tubs and trays, all your food and drink cans, foil and aerosols. And it's important to remember about things like foil and aerosols. So that's something you can already recycle. But again, we know that when we look at what people are recycling and what's left in the rubbish, that actually there's a hell of a lot more that we could capture of them. So if you move on, Barry. So we'll be asking you when this change comes, which is from the 26th of October this year, so still a little while away, we'll be asking you to put different things in different places. So I've already explained what goes in the blue bag: everything plastic, everything metal. In your black box, so the larger of the two boxes that most people have, we'll be asking you to put all your paper and cardboard. We'll still be sorting that separately on the truck, but we just think it'd be that bit easier for people to do it that way. In the smaller box, the green box, all your glass goes. You can leave the lids on glass again, which is just another change as we've upgraded our processing equipment, where we want to make it that bit easier for people. And that's where we'll ask you to put your Tetra Paks and other cartons. And the reason for that, again, is even though they you might think, oh, why don't they go with the cardboard? Well, actually, all of those Tetra Pak style cartons are a laminate of cardboard, metal and plastic. So again, so that we can recycle things properly, we've got to keep that separate from the cardboard, because the process they go through is very different. Food waste carries on exactly the same as it does, and we'll be asking you to put batteries and small electrical items in a bag, which the crew will return. And again, it's so that we can keep them separate. The last thing we obviously want is batteries with all the chemicals in them getting mixed up with the other streams. So we'll be sticking to that curbside sort, and that is the thing that really makes us make an environmental difference, together with the effort that everybody puts in, week out, to recycling. Can you move on, Barry? So with all that extra recycling, as I say, that's the point when your rubbish will move from a 2-weekly collection to a 3-weekly collection. We trialled that about 6 years ago, and I think 70, 80, maybe even more % of people wanted to carry on with that at the time. We were kind of a front runner at that time, but actually there are now 16 other authorities on 3-weekly collection, 2 on 4-weekly. So that's, 1.5 million people, 1.5 million households, sorry, doing that already. We know from our trials, from the experience elsewhere, our new contractor Suez, they do it in East Devon, the closest one to us. So we know it works, and we've learned a lot from them. There will be new routes. So with all that extra recycling, obviously the trucks fill up differently, and it's also a chance for us to make our routes more efficient. So they'll be driving fewer miles overall, and we're getting a lot of carbon saving out of our new fleet. For about 1/3 of households in Mendip, there will be different collection days. I can't give you the exact details for around Evercreek, because the big changes are really changing Frome from 2 days to 1 day, doing Shepton Mallet and Wells on the same day, and then doing all the rural areas. So if any of you are in a more rural patch, you may be getting a collection day change. It's important to highlight your garden waste collection day, that won't change, and neither will your clinical waste collection if you have one of them. And if you or somebody else you know has got an assisted collection, that will automatically flow over too. So if you move on, Barry. So obviously it is a big change. Some of you will have been through the change from, moving from black bags to wheeled bins, the introduction of recycling. Somerset's always been a pioneer in this, first to kind of roll out food waste at scale, but we know change is hard. So we want to make sure we communicate with people really clearly. So over the course of this week and early next week, you'll all get what we call a warm-up leaflet. So make sure everybody's aware that change is coming, that it's about expanding recycling. It's about moving to 3-weekly rubbish collection, highlighting that this will happen at the end of October, and encouraging people that are worried to get in touch. Encourage people that are like, oh, I'm not really recycling food waste at the moment, or I've only got 1 box and I think I might need 2 to cope. Encouraging them to get in touch with us early so that when it happens, you're ready. So you move on, Barry. You'll then get another leaflet through your door, which is in early October. So that one will be specific to you. So it will give you that kind of what goes where guide. So everybody will get that. It will give you an individual collection day calendar for the next 12 months. If you need an interim collection as we're changing things over, it will tell you when that is. Give more information on how recycling protects our environment. So a bit of an infographic which explains what happens to all your recycling. And it's also worth pointing out that actually now very little from Somerset goes to landfill. So the stuff that can't be recycled, which is getting smaller and smaller over time, that now goes up to Avonmouth to an energy from waste plant. So generating electricity, and also it will be powering what will become the UK's largest plastics processing facility. So doing that job that Barry was saying, that when we talk about plastics, actually we're talking about 50 different types of things, and you need some quite complicated processes to break that down back into usable raw materials. So as I say, we're here to help. So those 2 leaflets, then you'll get your bright blue bag delivered to you in the 2 weeks before the change happens. There's lots of stuff on our website. Mendip's customer services have been briefed. We've got extra staff to support people. We're encouraging more and more people to do it online through the My Waste services. And create an account. You can download a calendar from there. We're doing things like Facebook Q&As. I think we've got another one early morning next week, because bizarrely we get more traffic on our Facebook account between 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the morning. So that's when we're going to do one. We did a great talking cafe session working with the village agents and community council for Somerset. We've got a few more of them. I think we've had about 3,000 views on that so far. So again, and you'll hopefully have had your Somerset through your door, so you'll have seen some information there. So we're here to help. We're here to answer people's questions and reassure people. If you move on, Barry. One of the key things we do expect people to be concerned, worried, some people will be worried about is, well, have I got enough space? And so that might be, especially if you've got a large family, if you've got young children in nappies, if you've got somebody that's using kind of adult hygiene products, so something that doesn't need a clinical waste service, but does result in you producing quite a lot more waste. So we recognise every household is different. We want people to give it a go, but we also want to get the right support to people. So if you raise that through My Waste Services, it will take you through a form. It will just ask you a few questions about your circumstances, and we'll try and get the right support to you. You can do exactly the same thing through Mendip District Council's customer services, and then we'll get the as I say, we'll find a solution that's right for you and support you. We are also funding a couple of nappy groups. So Carry Me Kate, I think they're the one that covers Mendip. And again, we're not expecting this to be the solution for every family with young children, but for those that are interested, we want to make sure that they've got the right support, so they can get nappy loan kits, they can get the right support for their family. So there's that as well. And I think probably in my aim to keep it brief, because as you say,
that is it.
That is it. Yeah.
That is it. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And what I'm going to do as well, because I was a busy little boy today, you can all see, although the writing's the wrong way around, I've gone out and picked one of these up. So this is my hand, so you'll get an idea of how big these bags are. Unfortunately, I'm not a very good television producer. What you can see on this is it's Velcroed at the top, and it will close over so that you can put away your recycling. Because one of my questions to you guys was going to be, I'm very concerned about wildlife and recycling, and wildlife getting stuck and getting there into the recycling process and ending up down a chute and being mashed up with cans and whatever else. But with these bags, because they seal, good to prevent wildlife from crawling around in all of our recycling.
Yeah, that's right. So that and putting the paper and card, we made a few tweaks to how we're asking people to do it to try and balance that. We want it to be easy for people, in inverted commas, whilst also making sure that we're protecting the environment by collecting it separately. Yeah. Okay.
And you've mentioned, before I throw it open to the floor to people, if anybody's got any questions, now's the time to start to unmute yourself. You mentioned about the website, what's it called, My Waste, in terms of, that's on the Somerset Waste Partnership website, is that right?
That's right, yeah. I mean, if you go through the Mendip District Council website, you can get everywhere as well. But yeah, somersetwaste.gov.uk, that's where you'll find everything, or follow us on Facebook, and yeah.
And the other thing I've noticed as well is that the trucks have changed, and you keep talking about this company Suez, which I think is a new company to the Waste Partnership. How are they different, and what's different with the trucks, or what's different with the company that's now going to run this and be our recycling company?
So we used to have Care did our collection contract. We terminated our contract with them early because we wanted to get a partner on board that was up for this change, and that's what we've got with Suez. So Suez are you may not have, lots of people might not have heard of them, but they're a big waste company. So they're a specialist waste company. They're the one that kind of at the forefront nationally, pushing for better legislation to kind of improve producer responsibility. So we get fewer of the problem materials, the ones made of 4 different types of plastic and a bit of cardboard attached to it. They've got experience with doing 3 weekly. So yeah, they started at the end of March, just as we were all going into the hell that was lockdown. So that was fun. But also at that point, with a new contractor, we got a whole new fleet of vehicles. And so you'll know that our old vehicles were looking pretty tatty, were breaking down a bit too much. So partly it was time for a new fleet of vehicles, but also we needed vehicles that would cope with the extra recycling. So they do things like they push the plastic and cans, the lightweight materials up to the top of the vehicle. They squash the cardboard in them so they can hold a lot more. So even though we're going to be picking up a lot more recycling, we don't really need any more trucks. So and they're generally more efficient. And then with our new refuse vehicles, again, they've got things like electric bin lifts on them, so they're a bit quieter. They use a bit less fuel that way. So we're getting quite a lot of environmental benefit out of our new fleet. Okay, and Suez, compared to Care, just our rubbish collection companies, like it's their main business basically, is that right? They're water and waste internationally, but yeah, they're a very big waste company in the UK, yeah. Okay, I'm going to throw this open. If you have any questions, please wave at the screen or unmute yourself. I'm really happy for people to interact. That's the whole idea of this. I mean, I have, as you might have guessed, this is
the fourth time I think I've seen this, but it is a much briefer presentation, and I think it is better to understand that. I mean, personally, as I warned Mickey, I was going to say, I am a little skeptical on this, but it's because we all have to think about our rubbish differently, and I think we all have to, understand this is change. And I have a compost heap. We've now started actually using our brown bin as in the small little food bin as well, because there's certain food items I don't want to put on my compost heap because of a rodent threat. And I have noticed even that small change has meant that that's going into our bin has really much, much, much reduced. And I think we just have to think about what is our, the recycling collection is still going to be every week, isn't it?
That's right, every week. Absolutely. And you're right. And probably the other thing you've heard me kind of repeat over and over again is like, we can change a service. We get the environmental benefit by people changing their behaviours. So that's why, sessions like now are really important. The leaflets going out, reassuring people. And you're right. Some people will be nervous. And as you say, the best way to get over that is to give it a go. Or, if you're really unsure, to get in touch. But I think, if you're not recycling food, the difference that makes to your bin and to the amount you put out and to what your bin feels like is a huge difference. And I think people would be amazed. And the smell, exactly. And all of that plastic, it is quite bulky, isn't it? All those plastic pots, tubs and trays. So in terms of the amount of space in your bin they take up, I think people will be really surprised. And that's what we found in the trial. That's what other areas have found as they've brought it in. People are surprised by how easily they cope with it.
Okay, who would like to ask a question? Adam Boyden, off you go, mate.
Oh, hi. Hello, Mickey. Hi, it's Adam Boyden here, District Council as well in Frome. I'm just wondering how the volumes of the amounts of waste and refuse people have been putting in their bins. Has that changed since March? Has it gone up in some ways because there's more people at home? Gone down because we can't afford anything? Has that been taken into account in the calculations that you're working on?
Right. So I think, Adam, you're fading in and out a bit, but I'll just repeat in case everybody else didn't get it. I think Adam's question was, has the volume of waste changed since lockdowns happened? And has it gone up or has it gone down, or what's going on with it? And has that been factored into this? Because lots of people are working from home and lots of kids are off school as well, and there's a lot more people in the house a lot more of the day.
No, you're right. So what we saw over lockdown was a small increase in the amount of rubbish being produced. So kind of it varied over months, but it's starting to dribble back down. So the rubbish, that can't be recycled, that went up by a couple of percent. The big increases we saw was in the amount people are recycling. So it won't come as a surprise. So food waste went up between 20 and 30%. So that's everybody at home eating more meals at home. It's also partly a result. So when I've had weekly calls across the region, ours went up by more than lots of others did. And I think that's because we did that Slim My Waste, Feed My Face campaign before. So lots more people started recycling food. The other big change we've seen is cardboard. So that's been really difficult for us to manage because that tends to be the material that fills up first on a truck. And you can imagine with one of those trucks, as soon as one compartment's full, it's got to go back to the depot to unload and then come back out. So again, cardboard has gone up by 20 to 30%. Glass was probably the next biggest one, and I don't know what you're like, but I've probably been guilty of drinking a little bit more to survive through lockdown, but also, glass jars as well. People are cooking more at home. So yeah, we've seen some big increases though, and then things like paper have actually gone down, I guess, with even fewer people buying a newspaper. So in some ways it's a overnight kind of leap in some of those long-term trends that we've been seeing with more online shopping and more home working. It's starting to drop down again. The amounts are now starting to decrease. So, I haven't got a crystal ball. It is difficult to see what the future holds. I think, those were pre-existing trends. We're expecting that some of those to stick. Where they settle, we don't exactly know. So if you can imagine, it wouldn't be prudent of us, and we haven't got the money to kind of go, right, because of what we saw in lockdown, there's always going to be 20 to 30% more recycling. Therefore, we need 20 to 30% more trucks and crews. We're not at that point because we don't know yet. So what we've done is modeled it on where we were before, and then modelled to make sure we know the extra that we need to cope with those extra COVID tonnages. So we'll be tracking it carefully, but yeah, we've got plans for different scenarios. So we're confident we'll cope, but we also need to see how the world settles down. And I think it's not going to go back to how it was before.
Okay,
it's also
perfect.
not going to stay how it was during the depths of lockdown.
Okay, I'm going to move on because also the meeting will end in about 10 minutes because I'm GP on the Zoom account, I'm afraid. Lorraine has put her virtual hand up. She's been very high tech. So I'm going to hand over to her for her question.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yep, loud and clear. Yeah.
My question is about the recycling containers that we've had for quite a number of years, for the paper, for the cardboard, for the glass. I'm just wondering if there are any proposals at bringing lids in for these, rather than on windy days have paper and cardboard blowing absolutely everywhere and adding to the litter problem we have.
That's a very good question, and it goes back to something I also mentioned, not just the litter problem, the problem of wildlife actually accessing these. I mean, some council areas do have lids, some council areas have nets. What are, if any, plans are there, guys?
Yeah, we've reviewed that. I mean, and so hence some of the changes we're making. So putting some of those lightweight materials like the plastic going into that bag, as you showed with its Velcro lid, that's a change to try and reduce that. The paper and card, we're hoping that makes it easier for people to stack their paper in a way that it doesn't fly away. We're balancing different things there. So it is difficult. You imagine, going back to that point of kind of 20 million collections, actually the extra time it takes on every collection to take a lid off, put it back, that is a factor. And so, even lots of places that do have it ask that residents take those lids off when they present them for collection. So again, we're trying to make some tweaks to reduce the chances of litter flying away. We've also introduced some other changes. So on our vehicles, now they've got speed limiters which stop them going too fast if the flaps are open. We've got cameras on the vehicles so that actually we can monitor that, and and if we get a report saying there's been waste coming out of one of our vehicles, we can have a look and we can train the crews and we can do something about it. So yeah, it's going to be, it's not one of those ones that is a silver bullet. Putting lids on isn't just the answer, because as I say, most places that do that ask people to take it off. There is a significant cost impact from delivering the service if we do that. So yeah, it's, with all these things, we're trying to find the right trade-off to do the best we can.
And stacking the boxes is often a good way as well.
Fair enough. That's a very good, use the actual box as a lid on another box. I'm going to move on to
especially
Michelle.
with the paper and card in one box, stick the glass and Tetra Paks one on top. Yeah, because
the glass can't blow away so easily. That's a very good point. Michelle, over to you.
Hiya, hello everybody. My question is about plastics. A lot of plastics don't have the recyclable symbol on them. Is this something that means that we can't actually recycle these products, or can we still recycle them?
We don't follow the recycling symbols thing, because what we've found and what lots of other places have found is that it's quite confusing for people. There are some people who are dedicated recyclers who will look for the symbol and do that. For most people, actually, it'll be a turn off to them. They'll find it too hard and therefore will collect less. So we try and keep it simple in terms of, well, we know that plastic bottles are made out of a couple of types of plastic. And again, all the plastic pots, tubs and trays we'll be collecting. Again, we know that that's increasing it to a number of different types of plastic, but hopefully keeping it simple. What you will see on our trucks is now kind of different icons of materials. You'll also see them in our leaflets. And that's working with the national bodies, what we expect for a future kind of consistency in terms of labelling, because there are quite a few labelling systems around, again, so we don't want to confuse people. What we're trying to do is make it simple and align with what we understand from government will be the future of kind of labelling on packaging. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Super. Anybody else? Sarah, do you have a question? Yeah?
Nope.
No, sorry. Sandra?
No, I think Michelle covered it. One of the things that I've noticed over time is that all of the little pots and things that you can't put in your plastic recycling, I've been taking those off down the tip. But there's also these rules about if it's a green carton, then you can't recycle at all. And all of that gets really quite confusing, I think, for people. Can we put it all in the little blue bag and then it gets sorted out later, or do we still have to pick and choose what goes in there?
If it's a plastic bottle, if it's a plastic pot, tub or tray, you put it in your bag. We'll take it all, no matter what the colour. Okay. There are some things, you know, we won't be able to take, or if you put it in, it will be a contaminant, like a child's plastic toy or soft plastic, like your bread wrapper. You know, your bread might come in. That stuff we don't want. But if it's a plastic pot, tub or tray or a plastic bottle, stick it in the blue bag, and we'll be able to sort it. And again, that technology is changing all the time.
So broadly, brittle plastic basically is, if to be shorthand, I know it's not exact, but if you think it's quite brittle and it's a yogurt pot, that's going to be okay.
Exactly.
Have you worked out how many trips to the tip might be saved in either Mendip or Somerset? Have you an estimate on that?
No, because it probably, what we found when we've surveyed people that use the recycling centres, we found that the key thing that drives people to go there is their garden waste and bulky waste. And often what people will do is then take advantage of the fact that they're going there with a whole load of garden waste, go, right, I'll take my plastics, I'll take my water-based paint, and the many other things you can recycle there. So it's still, compared to the other things that we accept at a recycling centre, it's still a kind of smaller material. And again, that's why we want to bring it. We knew it was never the long-term answer. It was more of a stopgap, having the plastics at recycling centres until we could bring it in at the curbside, because we needed to change contractor, we needed the new vehicles, we need a whole set of depot improvements. So, and that's why it's happening in Mendip first, because we just invested in it, basically a new depot to deal with all of these extra materials and the extra volume. Right.
A very cheeky question, if I can. This great big, as you say, big blue bag, it is big. Do we know, A, what it's made of, and B, how long will it take one of these to decompose eventually?
Well, I hope it wouldn't be decomposing, because they can be recycled.
They can be recycled, that's good.
Mark, can you help me out there? If not, I might have to whiz you an answer afterwards, because I know certainly all of the plastic bins and recycling boxes, they're recycled quite locally, either here or it's a firm in North Somerset. It's pretty close to us. Can you remember in terms of bags?
No, I can't. I have to chase that one up.
Don't worry. If you could get back to me, just out of curiosity. I always find a question someone can answer.
Yeah, no, you have. But I guess the key point there is, plastic doesn't break down, does it? That's one of the issues with it, isn't it? But it's also why us moving for the things that can't be recycled, and often lots of those flexible plastics, there is no market for them. No one wants them. We haven't got the technology to deal with them. Hence why it's better when you've got that stuff left over that's going to make energy than just going to go and sit in a hole in the ground to be a problem for future generations. Super.
Okay. This is my last call, because we're into the last couple of minutes. I'm obviously going to thank everybody who's come along. It's a very difficult evening because it's so beautiful out to come along and talk trash, as we have. I hope people have actually learned something. It is a lightweight presentation. There's a lot more information on the Waste Partnership website. There will be some information on my councillor page, and parish councils up and down the district, including Evercreech Parish Council, are putting together information, town councils in Frome and our city council as well. See, I got them all in. But has anybody got any last minute question, which will have to be a very quick one if you do? The right answer is no. Mark or Mickey, anything to add? Mark, you're about to announce.
Yeah, all I would say, Barry, was you've got people here who you obviously got an interest in this subject. I would ask you to be, you can be great advocates for this, or just to raise awareness of it. There'll be leaflets landing on people's doorsteps. If you haven't had one already, it'll be coming soon. People will be talking about it, and it'd be great if you could pass on information if you learnt tonight, or get from elsewhere, or direct them to the website. Anything that gets people talking about it, is really helpful and raises awareness.
Super. I mean, I do think there is an interest in recycling and in the environment. I mean, people think a rural area and villages don't have it, but they certainly do, because we all depend on our environment. Okay, we are into our last minute. This meeting is recorded, so if anybody wants a copy of it, you can play it back. I'd like to thank you all, and we should all probably wave each other goodbye, because we all need to stay in touch. But remember, we are all trying to live in a very kind of curtailed world, and we should try and protect our environment too. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very